Today's topic is trade. What is meant by trade? Exchange of goods and services for money is known as trade. In layman language, trade involves the transfer of goods and services from one person to a person or entity to another, often in exchange of money. Economists refer to a system or network that allows trade as a market. Trade refers to the voluntary exchange of goods or services between economic actors. Since transactions are consensual, trade is generally considered to benefit both the parties. What is trade? Trade is the act of exchanging goods, services, or money between two or more parties. It can also refer to a business or occupation that is pursued as livelihood. Trade can be internal or external and can be further classified into different types. Barter trade. Barter trade is an early form of trade that involves exchanging goods and services without using money. Bilateral and multilateral trade. Bilateral, as the name suggests, trade conducted between two parties. Multilateral trade means trade conducted between more than two parties. So, trade conducted between two traders is known as bilateral trade, whereas trade conducted between more than two traders is known as multilateral trade. International trade. International trade has been key to the rise of global economy. Trade publishing. Trade publishing refers to the publishing of books for the general public. Trade job. A trade job is a job that requires advanced training and skills that are gained through means other than a bachelor's degree. Trade is an important economic activity. The economic life of people is interdependent. No region or country is self-sufficient. Trade between two regions is necessary to fulfill the needs of the people. As each region has different geographical conditions, each region produces specific commodities. If there is paucity of a commodity, then there is a demand for that commodity. The place where it is abundant provides the supply of the commodity. Thus, supply is done from regions producing excess commodities to regions facing deficit according to the demand. For example, apples produced in Jammu and Kashmir are sent to other states of India having a demand for it. Trade is an age-old concept. Trade used to be done in the olden days too. But in the olden days there were no money. So how the trade would be conducted? Trade would be conducted using barter system, that is exchange of goods for goods. So trade is an old age concept. In ancient and medieval periods, trade was done through the barter system. In this there were an exchange of goods with other goods. Grains were exchanged in lieu of work done or oil. Salt, honey and milk were exchanged for grains. There was no currency used in this trade. Even today we see traders who exchange utensils in lieu of old clothes, but this creates problems of estimating a proper price of commodities. Earlier too such problems were encountered. As a result, the use of currency started. Today in this modern age, trade is carried out with the help of currency only, but barter system is still prevalent to a small extent in remote areas amongst the tribal people. Trade involves buying and selling of goods. But do you know that trade can also take place without goods? We get vegetables from the vegetable vendor when we pay him money. We get books for which we pay money. When we travel by a vehicle, we pay a fare. Do we get any commodity from it? We have to give remuneration in lieu of the advice we take from the lawyers or doctors. Now, remuneration is a professional fee given to the professionals for taking their advice. Do we get any commodity from them? No, right? So, when there is buying and selling of goods, it is called visible trade. On the other hand, when there is an exchange of services, it is called invisible trade. Now, as we have understood the concept of trade, let's move on to other concept, that is types of trade. Now, types of trade are further classified into two types, on the basis of quantity of goods and on the basis of extent of trade region. On the basis of quantity of goods, there are two types of trade: wholesale trade and retail trade. On the basis of extent of trade region, there are two types of trade: domestic or internal trade, international or external trade. International or external trade is further divided into two types: import or export. Now let's understand this one by one. First is trade according to the quantity of goods. Internal trade is a type of trade that can be classified into two categories based on the quantity of goods involved: wholesale trade and retail trade. Depending on the quantity of goods, there are two types of trade: wholesale and retail trade. Wholesale trade. Wholesale trade involves buying goods in large quantities from manufacturers and selling them in smaller quantities to retailers. Wholesalers act as middlemen between manufacturers and retailers. Traders buy commodities on a large scale directly bought from the producers. The commodities are also sold on a large scale to retail traders. This is called wholesale trading. Wholesale traders buy goods on a large scale from industrialists, farmers, etc. For example, the orchard owners of mangoes or oranges sell their entire production to wholesale traders. Wholesale trade is the trade between the wholesaler and the retailer. Wholesale trade is a method of purchasing goods in a large quantities and reselling them in smaller quantities to organizations like businesses or other wholesalers. They often sell products at a lower rate than commercial sellers, which can help their customers reduce material costs and increase profit margins. Wholesale trade consists of purchasing and selling goods generally to retailers, professional users, or authorities, or to other wholesalers or intermediaries, regardless of the quantities sold. Wholesale trade is the buying and selling of goods in large quantities for resale to other businesses or consumers. Wholesalers purchase goods in large quantities from manufacturers, dealers, or producers and sell the goods in smaller quantities to retailers, other wholesalers, or consumers. Wholesalers act as a vital link between manufacturers and retailers, allowing manufacturers to reach a large number of customers. Wholesalers often sell products at a lower rate than commercial sellers, which can help their customers reduce material cost and increase profit margins. Now, what is retail trade? Retail trade involves buying and selling of goods in smaller quantities from wholesalers and selling them directly to consumers. Retailers can sell their goods in fixed locations such as department stores or online or by mail. Retail trade is the business of selling products to the end customer or final customer. It's the link between manufacturers or wholesalers and the customer. Retail trade can also include services like delivery and installation of products like furniture or appliances. Retail trade is when the traders buy goods from the wholesale traders and sell it directly to customers, when it is known as retail trading. The quantity of goods sold is less in this case. For example, the shopkeepers selling goods, vegetable vendors in markets, etc. Now moving to another type, that is trade according to the extent of region. Trade can be categorized by the extent of the region involved as domestic or international. The buying and selling of goods happens at various levels. On that basis, trade can be divided into local, regional, national, and international trade. Domestic trade or internal trade. This trade takes place between different regions within the same country. The size of the country, diversity, distribution, and availability of natural resources affect the internal trade within the country. The size of population, transport and communication services, the living standard of the people, marketing system led to large-scale internal trade. In India, factors like diversity in geographical conditions and high population also affect the domestic trade. A country's development is dependent on the extent of the domestic trade. If there is a good economic growth, then the trade will also be more. Thus, there is a positive relation between economic growth and trade. Domestic trade is a trade that occurs between two parties. Again, domestic trade is a trade that occurs between two parties as well as it occurs within the country. Domestic trade, also known as internal trade, is the buying and selling of goods and services within a country's borders. It's different from international trade, which is the exchange of goods and services between countries. Domestic trade is subject to local government taxes but not import or export taxes or custom duties. Domestic trade can be divided into wholesale and retail trade. Domestic trade contributes to the majority of a country's GDP. Domestic trade means trading within the borders of a country. Under this type of trade, the buyer and seller are located within the same country. Domestic trade includes local, regional, zonal, and national trading. It is further subdivided into two categories, which are as follows: wholesale trade and retail trade. Now, a domestic market, also referred to as an internal market or domestic trading, is the supply and demand of goods, services, and securities within a single country. Now, the second trade under the extent of region is international trade. International trade occurs between two or more countries. International trade is the exchange of capital, goods, and services across international borders or territories because there is a need or want of goods and services. In most countries, such trade represents a significant share of GDP, that is gross domestic product. While international trade has existed throughout the history, Uttarapatha Silk Road, Amber Road, Salt Roads, etc., its economic, social, and political importance has been on the rise in recent centuries. Carrying out trade at an international level is a complex process when compared to domestic trade. When trade takes place between two or more states, factors like currency, government policies, economy, judicial system, laws, and markets influence trade. International trade occurs between two or more countries. When a country sells goods and services to other countries, it is called exporting. When a country buys goods and services from other countries, it is called importing. International trade means the exchange of goods and services of one country with other countries. Some countries produce specific products in excess, for example, crude oil in Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, and wheat production in USA, Canada, etc. These products are sent to countries having demand for those goods. This leads to the beginning of international trade. When international trade takes place between two countries, it is bilateral trade. When it occurs between more than two countries, it is called multilateral trade. Export and import. Now, international trade is further divided into two types of trade, that is export trade and import trade. So, export and import are the basic processes of international trade. When a country buys those goods and services which are scarce in their own country from another country, it is known as import. When a country produces excess goods or services than required, it sells this to other countries which have a demand for it. This is called export. Moving to our next concept, which is balance of trade. Balance of trade is the difference between the import and the export values of a country in a specific period is called as balance of trade. When the value of import is more than the value of export, it is called unfavorable balance of trade. When the value of exports is more than the value of imports, it is called favorable balance of trade. When the value of exports and imports is almost the same, it is called balanced balance of trade. Balance of trade is the difference between a country's export and imports of goods and services over a period of time. A country has a trade surplus when it exports more than it imports. A country has a trade deficit when it imports more than it exports. The balance of trade is usually expressed in the currency of the country or economic union. The balance of trade is different from the balance of payments, which is made up of the BOT, that is balance of trade, and other components such as the current account and the capital account. The next concept is International Trade Organization. Carrying out trade at an international level is a more complex process than domestic trade. Trade takes place between two or more nations. Factors like the economy of the country, government policies, markets, laws, etc. influence the trade. The political relations between two countries also influences the trade between them. Sometimes the obstacles in the way of trading affect the mutual relationship adversely. To avoid this, international economic and trade organizations came up. To smoothen and justify the process of trade between countries of different economic standing, some international economic organizations were formed. These organizations work towards the facilitation and growth of international trade. The International Trade Organization was an international organization that was proposed to regulate trade between nations. The ITO was proposed to be the international organization in charge of international trade regulation among nations even before the coming into the being of the World Trade Organization. It is an organization for trade opening. It is a forum for governments to negotiate trade agreements. It is a place for them to settle trade disputes. It operates a system of trade rules. Next concept is marketing. Marketing is the act of satisfying and retaining customers. With a lot of hard work, Dhondipa used to get marketing is the act of satisfying and retaining customers. Marketing is typically conducted by the seller by the seller typically a retailer or manufacturer. It is one of the primary components of business management and commerce. Products can be marketed to other businesses, that is B2B, or directly to consumers, that is B2C. Now, marketing is done for many purposes. Marketing can be done through social media, hoardings, etc. Marketing orientations are philosophies concerning the factors that should go into marketing planning. The marketing mix, which outlines the specifics of products and how it should be sold, including the channels that will be used to advertise the product, is affected by the environment surrounding the product, the results of marketing research, and the characteristic of the product's target market. Once these factors are determined, marketers must then decide what methods of promoting the product, including the use of coupons and other price inducements. Marketing is important for many reasons, including increasing sales. Marketing helps increase sales by increasing the customer base. Importance of marketing. Marketing is important for many reasons, including increasing sales. Marketing helps increase sales by increasing the customer base. Building relationships. Marketing helps build relationships with customers, which can extend a brand's life and a brand reputation. Third is market research. Marketing research helps tailor messages to a targeted audience. It can also help identify weaknesses in a business plan. Competitive advantage. Marketing intelligence can help develop business strategies by collecting data on competitors. Distribution. Distribution allows producers to make goods available where they are needed. Next is competitive advantage. Marketing intelligence can help develop our business strategies by collecting data on competitors. Next is distribution. Next is distribution. Distribution allows producers to make goods available where they are needed. Promotion. Promotion helps make product or service known to customers. Expanding market research. Marketing also helps an business gain more revenue by extending beyond its usual customers. Marketing also helps to increase national income. Marketing can increase the national income by increasing production and sales and by improving people's earning capacity. Marketing also serves the society. Marketing can benefit society by providing more employment opportunities, better services, and innovators. Other importance of benefits are marketing also helps to boost sales. Marketing is a great way to give relevant information to customers. Marketing campaign provides consumers with a general idea of what your business is. Marketing also creates brand awareness. Marketing helps to create effective consumer engagement. Marketing also helps to set goals of the company.